All right, I thought today I'd start out with showing you guys a few things about what I'm using. This here is a Firefly. It's very cheap, 335 style, knockoff. And I mean, these things are like $189. I did recently get everything upgraded, new tuners, pickups, bridge, tailpiece, even the wiring inside is new. Everything but the nut, because this is supposedly an actual bone nut. It's good. I think it's pretty cool for the price. I mean, it's instead of paying $3,000 for an actual Gibson ES 335, this is good enough for me. Someday maybe. And then I also have this really cool the Joyo wireless guitar. These bugs. I mean, it's $40. There's no reason to use cables these days. And then I'm also using my, let's see if I can get this in here real quick, but I'm using the Yamaha THR little desktop amp. It's okay. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's for just practicing upstairs, it's pretty good. All right, so I thought today what I would do is talk about how shapes move across the neck and how we have to change the shape when we get to the B string, because how the B string goofs everything up on the guitar. So I'm going to start with using a G chord, and we will take the first three strings of that chord is literally the notes that make up the chord, right? So that's G, B, D, G, B, D, okay? And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna finger that like this. We're gonna go, and notice, again, I'm putting my index finger, so that's on the 3rd fret of the low E, and my ring finger is on the 2nd fret of the A, and then my first finger is back here behind the nut on the D string. Now, I do this for a reason when I teach, is because it's hard for people to understand if I do this here at the 5th fret and make this shape. So 5th fret of the low E, 4th fret of the A string, and then the 2nd fret of the D. It's hard for students, especially beginners and even some intermediate players, to understand how this is this actual G shape moved up, right? So what makes this confusing is that you don't need to fret the D string. So if I get students to finger it like this, and then start moving it up, it makes a lot more sense to them, okay? So I've just moved this G up a whole step, which a whole step up from G would be A. So I'm really playing an A triad. And remember, a triad is just the 3 notes of the chord, just 3 notes. When you play a full G chord here, now you're repeating notes. You got G, B, D, G, D, G. You got 3 Gs. G root shape. You've got 2 Ds, and 1 B. Okay? So that makes a big full-lush sound, right? Okay, so we come back here, and now we move this little G shape up, triad up here. So now we're at the 5th fret of the low E, the 4th fret of the A, and the 2nd fret of the D, which makes an A triad. That's A, C sharp, and E. Those are the 3 notes of an A chord. Now what we're going to do is we're going to see how this shape moves across the neck, okay? So when I drop it down a string set here, so when I drop it down to the A, D, and G strings, nothing changes. It's just the same shape, literally moved down, okay? But this is now, the chord has changed. This is now a D triad, because now we're at the 5th fret of the A string. So D, F sharp, A. Okay, now if I move this shape down again to the next string set, so the D, G, and B string set, right? Now this shape, if I move it down and I play it like the same shape, you're gonna hear, oh, that doesn't sound right? That B string is wrong. So we have to compensate by moving the B string up a half step. Now though, I'm gonna rearrange my fingering to make it a little bit, you know, nicer of a way to finger it. So I'll use my ring finger now on the 5th fret of the D, middle finger on the 4th of the G, and index on the 3rd of the B. So again, if I took my index and went back 1 fret, it would still be the same shape as we were doing here, right? Now it's a G triad. Okay, now again, if I take this shape and drop it down to the last string set, the G, B, and E, well, once again, the B string needs to go up a half step, right? I could just add my pinky. So a couple ways. You could go ring, pinky, index. Again, that's 5, 5, 3, the bottom 3 strings. Or I could go 2, 3, 1, right? Okay, so what's the significance of this? Well, I hope you figured it out as I was going through, and what I was saying is, you know, the shape's changing, but in the same regard, it's still really the same shape. It all stems from this right here. So again, nothing changes. Now when I drop it down again, the B string has to go up a half step. So I'm gonna rearrange my fingering, and then once again, when I drop it down, the B string goes up a half step. Okay, but what do we have here? So you're playing major triads across the neck. This is an A up here. This is now a D triad. This is now a G triad, G, B, D. And then we have a C triad here, C, E, G. Okay? So some of this stuff is, you know, it's hard to kind of explain sometimes the significance of understanding this, but, you know, as you learn this stuff, you realize you have a lot more options when you go to play or use chords or improvise. So, you know, like if this was an A chord, right, I have the arpeggio here, right, or the triad and an arpeggio, so I could be musical. See how I'm taking that A triad and like, and I'm seeing the, you know, as always, I'm always going to see the best I can. I'm usually pretty good with it, but I'm going to see a major scale, or any scale. If it's a minor chord, a minor scale. So in this case, it's an A major triad. So I'm seeing that A major scale around the triad, right? So there's the arpeggio up, scale, down. If I drop it down to D, let's see here. So arpeggio up, scale down, right? If I drop it down again, now once again I have to conform to the B string. So I get this is a G triad, right? Right? Sorry, I'll go like this. Try to stay to the same fingering there, right? Okay. See, I'm using the triads. I'm using the arpeggio or the triad here, the chord tones of the chord, and I'm adding in the other notes from the scale. You know, and I rearrange my fingers at times to, depending on what I'm doing. Right, depending on what I'm doing. Okay, this is, the more you work with this stuff, the longer you play, you'll really realize the importance of knowing this stuff here. This is, to me, I used to tell this to my students all the time, to me this is kind of like the adding and subtracting, multiplying, dividing of math or music, you know what I mean? It's like, it's the stuff you use in math, that's what you use every day for most people, right? Well, in music, it's this stuff that, like, you're going to use again and again. It's great to know, like, crazy chords and, a diminished scale or a super Lydian dominant mixolydian, scale, but, you know, that stuff, again, you're not going to always use a lot in popular music. So it's really important that you know, like, a lot of the basic fundamental stuff. And knowing your triads, your basic major and minor triads, is such a big thing to see on the guitar, okay? And then the last one here is my C. Again, just, you know, how I finger this, how I play it, you know, it depends on the usage of it, right? So don't ever think there's one way to like finger something, or, you know what I mean? So let's see here. This one's a little bit trickier because I'm running on real estate. I only have a little bit of the scale right here. I mean, I could keep coming down, but it's... You see how I'm every one of these triads, I'm seeing either the whole scale, or in this case, this C, I'm seeing a little bitty piece of the scale along with the triad, right? Right, so again, this is ways that you can practice and learn, but still be musical in the same way, right? So once again here, I got an A triad at top. It's A, C sharp, and E. And again, I'm gonna like, you know. So that again, I'm just playing the triad or the arpeggio. In other videos, I've talked about how these, you know, a triad can be an arpeggio if you play it, if you pick it broken, right? Or I can use this as a, you know, a rhythmical device and start coming up with, you know, cool rhythms or whatever. So again, all I'm doing, I'm just using the arpeggio, the triad, along with C and the A, in this case the A major scale, around the triad, right? And then if I drop it down to the next string, so again, that was D, so this is D, F sharp, and A. So there's my D major scale, right here. If I move it down again, remember I had to conform to the B string. We're now at a G triad. Pinky. I started with my ring, you know, but again, you know, when you're really using this stuff, sometimes you change the way you're fingering things for when it's real world usage, right? So when we learn scales, so just for example, like this G scale here, you know, people learn this scale and it's like, you know, you're gonna change. I'm not going to always stick to this fingering when I'm really using it in a real world usage, right? So the fingering in the beginning is just a means to an end to learn it, okay? And then you had your C chord, your C triad. And I just can only have a little bitty, you know, part of the scale. Remember, what I'm trying to do here is, for the most part with all these triads, and I'm trying to stay somewhat, you know, in the same position to play the triad and then to see the scale, right? So when I do the C here, I'm just, for the purposes of the lesson, I'm trying not to like deviate too far away from this triad, okay? But you can when you're really playing in real world usage, right? I may, in real world usage, maybe bring the scale all the way down, right? It's just, again, so the important thing here is that you're understanding how things transfer. One shape, the same shape, transfers across the neck and really only changes because of the B string tuning, okay? So I think I'll leave that lesson today as that. If you have any questions, let me know. Check out steveanthus.com. If you want lessons, hit me up, email me, and we'll try to make a time work. All right, thanks so much.